A number of years ago, I was speaking to a young man, and we were friendly for many years, and I hadn't spoken to him in a little while. And I said to him, "How are things going?" He said to me, "Well, religiously terrible, but spiritually great." I was a bit curious what that meant, religiously terrible, but spiritually great. So I asked him, "What do you mean?" He said, "Well, religiously, in terms of mitzvahs, putting on tefillin, davening, not much at all. But spiritually, I've never been closer to Hashem. I see Hashem every day right there." Now, I found this a bit odd because this fellow was involved in one of the AA groups. He had become addicted, and AA taught him something that he didn't know before, and that is that spirituality is a part of Judaism. Not just that, but Hashem is the center focus of everything in our religion. This fellow went to Lakewood yeshivas, 14 years of yeshiva, and the idea that he could be spiritually attuned and recognize God, and that's almost like it's divorced from the religion. Religious is putting on tefillin and davening, but seeing Hashem in my daily life, that's something different. That's spirituality. I found it a bit odd. But what I found over the years is that he's not alone. And many, many people almost can be involved in learning 12 hours a day, doing all kinds of mitzvahs, but Hashem somehow doesn't equate into the picture. And that is a bit curious, because the Ramban in Chumash defines the purpose of all mitzvahs. The focal point of all mitzvahs is to know Hashem. The reason we're given the mitzvahs, the focal point of them all is to allow us to recognize Hashem's presence, to recognize that Hashem is the creator, to see Hashem here. And while we may not be attuned to it all the time, we may space in and space out, if you don't clearly understand that Hashem is center focus of our religion, you're not missing a little bit, you're missing everything. And what we're going to start this series with is understanding Hashem on a little bit better level. The name of the series is An Owner's Guide to the Soul. But before we understand the soul, we have to understand Hashem, why Hashem created us, what life's about. And then we'll get involved a little bit more involved in terms of how we act towards Hashem, react to Hashem, how our soul actually functions. So let's begin with something that Derech Hashem explains to us. Derech Hashem explains that there are 3 ways to know Hashem. And knowing Hashem doesn't mean theoretically God exists. Knowing Hashem means viadata, knowing. Vashivos elovecha, and to bring it close to your heart, to know it, to recognize, to see Hashem present. Explains Derech Hashem, there are 3 ways to come to that. One is the Masorah. There were 3 million Jews gathered at the foot of Har Sinai. 3 million people were there, and they heard the words, Anochi Hashem Elokecha. They saw the Shamayim Va'aretz open up, and they saw through everything. They all reached the level of Nevuah. And those 3 million people told their children, who told their children, who told their children, generation after generation. And we are the recipients of a very powerful Masorah. The Masorah that each of us carries is that God spoke to the Jewish nation at Har Sinai and said, I am your God, the creator of the heavens and the earth. I took you out of Mitzrayim. I created the world. I maintain the world. And by focusing on the Masorah, by thinking about it, and by dwelling, by learning, that's certainly a way to better know Hashem, and that's certainly a very reliable way to know Hashem. The second method to come to know Hashem, and again, not in the theoretical sense, but to actually feel Hashem's presence, if it could be, to have yediyah, knowledge, is bechina. Bechina means discernment, thinking, dwelling, contemplating, looking at the complexity of the world, look at the vastness of the universe, study an atom, study a cell, study one cell in the human body, and you know that it's more complex than New York City, and you study the intricate machinery, and you see an eye glimpse to the wisdom of our Creator. And when you begin studying the wonders of the world, the beauty, the tremendous pleasures that Hashem created, from colors, sights, sounds, and when you see butterflies, when you see flowers, when you see a sunrise, a sunset, and you see the magnificent world that God created, when you get an eye glimpse into this world, you get a glimpse to your Creator. If this is the creation, what does it tell me about my Creator? And Bechina, the process of introspection, thinking, understanding, is the second method to come to know Hashem. The third method is something that's called intuition, yediyah, knowledge. Before I began this thing called life, I, the one I'm thinking, I, the one I'm speaking to you, was under Hashem's throne of glory, and Hashem took me and put me into this body. But because I had a beginning, there are many things that I intuitively, instinctively know. When I stand by the edge of a mountain, I may never have fallen down a mountain cliff before, but I know that this will end very, very badly. When I see the beauty of an ocean, I'm moved. When I see the stars at night, I just feel something. There are ideas, there are knowledge, there's intuition, there's understanding within the human heart that doesn't need schooling. It doesn't need education. Intuitively, instinctively, I know it. Now, the problem is there are many reasons why I don't want to fully accept it, because if Hashem is here and Hashem has certain requirements of me, that means there are things I'm going to do, things I'm not going to do, things I'm going to be required to do. And there are many reasons why it may be difficult for me to tune into my inner intuition, but that is the third way for a person to come to Yediyah Hashem. And number one, the Masorah, just thinking about the fact and reviewing the fact that 3 million Jews gave over a Masorah, one generation to the other, that Hashem said, Anochi L'Hashem Elokecha, Bechina, delving into the depth of the world, seeing the complexity and seeing my Creator. And the third is just knowing, just being honest with myself, closing my eyes and talking to my Creator and coming to an understanding that deep down inside I have. You know, it's oftentimes only when we're rolling down that cliff, when we're driving on that road and we jump the embankment and suddenly I'm rolling down the cliff, Hashem, help! There's a very clear yediyah, a very clear knowledge that Hashem is present. During the rest of my life, I might have been very, very staticky, and I might not have tuned into it. But when I'm in big trouble, and when the pedal hits the metal, when I'm in real deep, dire straits, I call out to my Creator intuitively, instinctively. I know that Hashem is there. But all three of these are systems that a person has to work on, and because the knowledge of Hashem is the essence of our religion, and it's a constant growth process. It's not like, I know Hashem. V'yadata hayom. It's a pasuk in Chumash. Hashem says, you know today. This is speaking to the Dordea. This is the generation who heard Anochi Hashem Lakecha. Nevertheless, Hashem said, you should know today, Vashivose elovevecha. Put it into your heart. Think about it. Dwell on it. Make sure that you clearly, fully understand this. Because you see, the big mistake that we make is, we think either I'm a mammon or I'm not a mammon. Listen, I'm a Jew. I believe. Finished. Done. Emunah is not an on or off switch. Emunah has many, 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 many layers. Most likely, we start on a pretty weak level. If you'd like a test of your Emunah, one of the best tests that I have, and I'd like to give this as a very simple litmus test, and the next time you're davening Shemona Esrei. The next time you're davening Shemona Esrei and you find yourself spacing out. Now, wait a minute, how'd that happen? I was talking to God, the creator of the heavens and the earth, the one who controls every single outcome, the one who's more powerful than powerful, richer than rich, the one who controls my utter complete destiny. And I space out? I won't space out if I'm talking to you. If I go to someone for a large donation for TheShmuz, I don't suddenly have I'm distracted. I was thinking about something else. How come I could speak to a human being and not get distracted, but I can't talk to God? And the answer is because I'm on a 20% Emunah level, meaning I see Hashem with 20% clarity. I, the neshama, I, the one who thinks, I'm put into this body, and its body has very, very heavy cloak of physicality to it. And this body blocks me. This body stops me from thinking, stops me from seeing. And because I'm submerged within this body, I see things with a tremendous haze and a tremendous level of confusion. And I see things with very, very dark, very, very distant sight. So when I'm davening Shemona Esrei, sometimes if I put the brain on and I work on it, especially if it's Elul, and I'll speak to Hashem and I know Hashem's right there, and then suddenly I'm gone. Why? Because again, I might be on a 20 level, maybe 21, you work on it a little more. But the point is, life is supposed to be a growth process. Throughout this thing called life, I'm supposed to be growing and growing, and from a level 20 to 21% to 22% to 23 to 24. A person after many, many years might get to 30%. And if you see a person really talking to Hashem, really connecting, a person whose life is very, very different, they worked for many, many years. Limud Torah, learning, is one of the greatest spiritual sources of energy. But the process of davening, the process of doing everything that we're supposed to do as Jews, helps me to see Hashem more clearly, helps me to cut through the haze of physicality, and brings me from a 20% clarity to 22 to 24 to 25, onwards and upwards. But life is supposed to be a steady progress. And because life is supposed to be a steady progress, we need to understand Hashem as much as we can so that we could recognize Hashem, so that we could cut through the cloak of physicality, and so that we could be dovek to Hashem, recognize Hashem in our world. And what I'd like to do in this first session is spend a little time on some basics, because when we get some of the basics, I think we'll be able to better relate to Hashem and better understand Hashem's relationship to the world that we live in and Hashem's relationship to us. So let's begin with a Chazal. Gemara tells us, Kishechala Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai. When Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai was 120 years old, he was the Nasi, he was the leading Torah sage in the Jewish nation, and to his address came all issues, all problems. He was the Gadol Hador. And at this age of 120, he took ill. He took to his deathbed. Nichnasu Talmidav Levakrov. His close Talmidim came to visit him. They came to bid farewell to their Rebbe. Miyad. Immediately, once he saw that they were coming to bid him farewell, Miyad his chalifchos, he begins crying. Amr Talmidav, his Talmidim say to him, Ner Yisrael, the light of Israel, Amari Yamini, the right pillar. Mimnei ma atabocha, why are you crying? Normally, when a person prepares to leave this earth, there's a lot he has to think about. Many things he did that he shouldn't have done, many things he did he didn't do. But this is the great Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, the perfect tzaddik, the leader of the Jewish nation, the man who spent his entire life serving Hashem as Hashem wanted him to. Mimnei ma atabocha, why are you crying? And answers Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, Ilu lifnei melech basar adam hayu malichin osi. Let's assume I was being taken now in front of a flesh and blood king. And this flesh and blood king were to judge me. Shim koes alai, and this king would be angry with me. And kai so kas olam, that anger would not be forever. Imosrani, if this flesh and blood king would lock me up, it wouldn't be forever. And if this flesh and blood king were to kill me, it would not be forever either. And this flesh and blood mortal king, I could appease with words, I could bribe him with money. And nevertheless, wouldn't I cry? And what Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai was saying with those words is a very interesting observation. If you think about one simple recognition, imagine that a jury of my peers were judging my life. Imagine that there was a day in my life, CNN came down and filmed a day in my life, and a jury of my peers, my friends, my chevra, were judging me. How much did I put in effort? Did I say the right thing? Didn't I say the right thing? Could I have done more? Could I have not have done more? Was I as careful as I should have been? Did I speak Lashon Hara? Didn't I? Did I say brachas with kavana? Did I daven? Could you imagine if my friends were to judge me on one day with a single criteria of how much did I accomplish? How much did I do? How well did I use my time? Explains Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, that is a frightening thought. If I were being judged by a mortal flesh and blood king, and just knowing that this king was to review my entire life, wouldn't I cry? Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai says that's not where they're taking me. I'm not going in front of a man. I'm standing in front of God, the creator of the heavens and earth. If Hashem gets angry with me, kais so kas olam, that anger is for eternity. Vimosrani, if Hashem locks me up, Marshal explains that means in Gehenna, and that could also be forever. V'imimisani, if Hashem kills me, the ultimate punishment to Rishayim is they're snuffed out. They're no longer in existence. The neshama is extinguished. If Hashem were to do that to me, that is for eternity. Shouldn't I cry? Shouldn't I be filled with fear? And with those words, Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai described the reality that a person should have when he approaches his final days. At a certain point, the Talmidim realized there's not much time left, and they said, Rabbeinu Barcheinu, Rebbe, give us a bracha. Give us a final bracha. So Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai says to them, Yiratzon shetei mora shamayim aleichem kemora basav adam. My bracha to you is you should fear Hashem as you do man. Amalem, the Talmidim said, Kulei havsulo, that's all. Fear Hashem as we do man. You just told us how much more a person has to fear Hashem, the creator of the heavens and the earth, than a mortal man. Now you're telling us how we should fear Hashem as we do man? Says Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, Teidu, I'll prove it to you. Kisha Adam over Avera. Before a man sins, he looks left, he looks right. He says, Shalo Yirani Adam, Halavai. Halavai, it should be that you fear Hashem as you do man. Then Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai said these words, Ichinu Kisei Chizkiyahu Melech Yehuda Shaba. Prepare a chair for Chizkiyahu Melech Yehuda is going to be malavim, he's going to escort me. The Maharsha explains that Chizkiyahu was the king who brought his entire generation back in Tshuva. Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai did the same for his generation. It was only appropriate that Chizkiyahu would be the one to escort Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai into his final resting place. And with those words, he left this earth. And this is the Gemara. And there are many, many lessons for us to learn from this Gemara. Certainly one of which is the fact that I, as every mortal under the sun, have a time. There's a time, and that time is clicking away, clicking away. Every day is one day gone, another hour, another minute. And there's only one question that they're going to ask me when I'm done my job here. How much did I accomplish? How much did I do? And the stakes are so tremendously grave. What I could accomplish is beyond description, and the opposite, the damage that I could do is beyond our understanding. And just that recognition that every human being has a kates, every human being has a time. I'm on a continuum. I have just so much time, and when I'm done my job, my body's put in the ground, I stand in front of Hashem, and they ask me how much of me did I become. That single cognition is probably the most galvanizing and the most empowering that a human being will ever come to. Why? Because when I realize there's an end, I realize every moment of life is precious. What I can accomplish and what I can do. And more than that, this current moment will never return to me. What I could accomplish right now will never, ever come to me again. Because this moment, once it's gone, is gone. If I kill time, I kill a day, kill a week, kill an hour, that time will never be presented to me again. Every moment of life is an opportunity to grow. Every moment of life is an opportunity to change the essence of me. And that moment of life, once it's gone, is gone, never to be returned. And when you understand that, and you understand that there's an end to this party, that concept is not depressing. That concept is hugely empowering. The single most depressing thing that I could think of is that life has no purpose. We're just here. Whatever, eat, drink, be merry, whatever. That is the single most depressing idea I could ever envision or imagine. Because what that means is, who cares? What I do doesn't matter. What I accomplish doesn't matter. If I do the right thing, the wrong thing, life doesn't matter. But once I understand that there's a limit, and once I understand there's a time, I'm going to be in the box. The body's going to be in the ground. And I'm going to separate and stand in front of Hashem, and there's an end. And at that moment, every action of my life, every activity, every thought, everything I did is going to be weighed and measured. That is the most empowering concept a human being could ever come to. Because once I get that, my goodness, let's go. And this is a minute to grow, to accomplish, to change myself, change the people I'm around. I can change this moment into a glorious piece of eternity. And that understanding is huge. And that understanding brings a person firepower. It's a catalyst for growth, and it gives a person the energy to get out of bed and move. And what Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai was saying to his Talmidim was, that was something ever present in his mind, and certainly at that moment. But that's not what I want to focus on. It's the last conversation between Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai and his Talmidim that I'd like to focus on. It almost sounds like there was a vikuach. The Talmidim said, Rebbe, give us a bracha. And Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai says, you should fear Hashem as you do man. And the Talmidim say, Kula havasulo, that's all. Fear Hashem as we do man. And says Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, yes, halavai. Halavai, you should fear Hashem as you do man. I'll prove it to you. Because look, before a person sins, he looks left, he looks right. It seems like the Talmidim had one perspective, and Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai had a different perspective, and it sounds like there was a debate on the deathbed of this great tzaddik. And what I'd like to do is understand both positions and see what we can learn from them. So let's begin with the Talmidim's position. Talmidim said to Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, you ask us to fear Hashem as we do a mortal man? What were they saying? So to understand the Talmidim's position, I don't think is too difficult. Let's just focus on some common pedestrian concepts that, because they're so common and so pedestrian, sometimes lose their impact. We live in a world of technological wonder. We live in a world where so much has been revealed of the physical aspects of the universe, and that sometimes the awe, the tremendous, almost awesomeness of it is just lost to us. Let me give you an interesting example. Let's talk about distance. From here to the wall over there is about 35 feet, not that far. And from here to California is a lot further. From New York to California is about 3,000 miles. Even if you get in a jet flying 500 miles an hour, it still takes 6 hours, because to cross a continent is a huge distance. But when you talk about the known universe, 3,000 miles is not a great distance. From here to the moon is about 250,000 miles. From here to the sun is some 91 million or 93 million miles, depending on the season. But if you'd like to understand what 91 million miles means, I'll share with you one observation. They say that the core temperature of the sun is 17 million degrees Fahrenheit. And if you were to take a grain of sand, heat it up to that temperature, and bring it back to planet Earth, everything within a 60-mile radius would erupt into flames. But because the sun is so distant, 91 million miles is so far away that the sun's energy dissipates, hence it's a balmy 75 degrees on planet Earth. But let's imagine for a minute that it wasn't 91 million miles. Let's imagine it was 45 million miles and distance between the sun and planet Earth. What would life be like on our planet? So, as you probably remember from basic science, rock tends to melt at about 4,000 degrees Fahrenheit. Life on the planet wouldn't be, because there's so much energy coming out of the sun that if it was only 45 million miles, the Earth would be a molten ball of lava. But because 91 million miles is so far out, and the light gets a chance to dissipate, some 2 billionth of 1% of the energy actually hits the Earth and is translated and converted into energy. Hence, it's a balmy 75 degrees as opposed to 4,000 degrees. 91 million miles is a vast, vast expanse of space, almost mind-boggling. But when you talk about the known universe, 91 million miles is not a vast distance at all. From our sun to the closest nearest sun, which is Alpha Centauri, is a distance that's so hard to imagine that you cannot measure it in miles. As a matter of fact, science reverts to a different scale of measure. If you try to use miles to measure stars' distances, and the numbers become so large and so cumbersome that you can't even make sense of them. So science reverts to the system, measure being the time that light tends to travel, the speed of light. As you know, light travels 186,000 miles a second, and now we have a convenient scale of measure. How far will light travel in 1 second? 186,000 miles. Now you take an hour, a week, a month. So let's use that as a scale of measure. From here to the moon, light traveling, how much time does it take? 1.25 seconds. Because 250,000 miles converted that speed, about 1.25 seconds. From here to the sun, it's about 8 minutes. That means light hurtling at 186,000 miles a second, and measure the second by the minute, 8 minutes from the sun to the earth. What is the distance between the sun and the closest star, Alpha Centauri? So light hurtling at 186,000 miles a second times the hour times 24 hours, it takes 1,500 days for light to travel from the sun to our closest star, Alpha Centauri. 4 years, because there's such an unimaginable distance between stars in the known universe that it baffles the mind. It takes 1,500 days for light to travel. But the interesting part is that in our own Milky Way galaxy, there are not 2 stars, not even 4 stars, not even 20 stars. Astronomers estimate that in the Milky Way galaxy, there are approximately 100 billion stars, each as powerful as our sun or more powerful, each spread apart as far as the sun in Alpha Centauri, and spread across 100 billion miles of space, the Milky Way galaxy. But here's the interesting point. The Milky Way galaxy is not the only galaxy in the known universe. As a matter of fact, scientists revert to a mashal. Now, you have to pay attention. From Chazal, we used to mashalim. A mashal is a parable. We want to talk about spiritual concepts, so it's very hard for us physical people to understand spirituality. We need a new frame of reference. And because it's outside our normal frame of reference, a parable helps. But when scientists who measure the physical world revert to parables, you have to pay very careful attention. Science gives us a mashal, a parable. And if you'd like to measure the Milky Way galaxy compared to the known universe, it's the equivalent of measuring a coffee cup against the United States of America. Because in the known universe, there are approximately 100 billion galaxies, each containing 100 billion stars, each spread across this vast known universe of 13 billion light years of ever-expanding space. Would you like to know what the Talmidim was saying to Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai? All you have to do is imagine the moment before Ma'aseh Bereshis. Hashem said, Vayehi, and from absolute absence of anything, 100 billion galaxies, each containing 100 billion stars, came into existence. The world we know in, says the Talmid of Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, you ask us to fear God as we do man? Mortal man who puts his head down on a pillow at night and doesn't know if he's going to open his eyes in the morning or not. Mortal man who gets one little coronavirus and he's toast. He's history. You ask us to fear the creator of the heavens and the earth as we do man? So I think we understand well the Talmidim's question. The question now becomes, so what's Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai's answer? Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai didn't say, oh, tak, I never thought of it that way. Quite the opposite. Halavai. It should only be halavai that you fear Hashem as you do man. The question is, what did Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai say to his Talmidim? And to understand that, let me take you back to my high school Rebbe days. I was a high school Rebbe for about 15 years, and I created a very close kesher with the guys. And the guys would ask me questions as they get older. And oftentimes a guy would be close to going out, and he'd ask me for advice. One of the pieces of advice that I always give a guy is, if you're going to take a fine Beis Yaakov girl out on a date, do not take her out to eat on the first date. Go for a walk, go to the park, whatever, but don't take her out to eat. First of all, your first date might be your last date, and it's very expensive, but much more than that, she's going to be very, very uncomfortable. You understand? She's going to be there eating in front of you, and she's going to wonder, do I slip the spaghetti? How do I crunch the lettuce with my mouth open? She's going to be so uncomfortable, don't do it. That was the advice I used to give these guys. Now, here's a very interesting observation. Let's imagine we have a 21-year-old young woman. Now, she's been eating for quite a number of years now. Since, let's say, she's about 2 years of age, she's been eating 3 meals a day. 3 meals a day times 365 days, about 1,000 meals a year. You're talking 18,000 meals she's eaten to this point. Somehow she knows how not to slurp the spaghetti, how not to scrunch the lettuce when she's chewing with her mouth open or closed. So how did she suddenly become uncomfortable when it comes to eating? And the answer is because, come on, this guy, maybe my Basheret, someone's right there who's very, very important in my world, and it might be the person I'm going to marry. And that's exactly what Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai was saying. The single cognition that Hashem is present will change your life more than anything else. If you want to study the vastness of this universe, if you want to study the complexity of the world, you'll see the wonders of Hashem's world. But if you want to come to real Yiras Shamayim, recognizing that Hashem is present right here will have a much greater impact. Yes, it's very important to read physics books. And yes, it's very important to study science, to study chemistry. Because when you see the wonders of Hashem's creation, you see an eye glimpse into the majesty, the greatness of our Creator. And Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai said, well, that's true. If you want to come to real Yiras Shamayim on a functional level, just focusing on one single cognition, that Hashem is present, will change your life to a much greater extent. Interestingly enough, the Mesilas Yesharim explains to us that this is called Yiras Aromamus. And this is the highest level of Yiras Shamayim. Knowing that I'm speaking to Hashem, knowing that Hashem is here, knowing that as I go through my life, Hashem is present right here, but not up there 13 billion light years. Hashem, can you hear me up right here? That cognition is the highest level of Yiras Aromamus, the highest level of Yiras Shamayim. Explains Mesilas Yesharim, and that is one of the highest levels you can reach. But then he says something very, very eye-opening in Perek Yotes. He says, Zuhi Tefillah. This is davening. What is davening? And davening is I'm speaking right here. And Mesilas Yesharim says, imagine I'm speaking to my friend. My friend is right here. I'm speaking to him. He may respond, may not respond, but he's right here. Zuhi Tefillah, that's davening. Little me having a conversation with the Creator of the heavens and earth, but right here. Not up there, Malachim, bring the tefillahs up to Hashem, but speaking to Hashem right here. And that understanding is life-changing. And that understanding demands that I transcend these bounds of physicality. I transcend this life that limits me, and I recognize Hashem's presence. And if I could tap into that moment, that's one of the most powerful moments that a Jew can ever engage in. Now, I don't like to do this too often, but I have become a bit of an observant Jew. And one of the observations that I have is that I've noticed that people have this muscle twitch. I found it especially in the Ashkenazi community. Certainly as a Rebbe in a high school, I would see this on a regular basis. Before a guy would eat or drink, there's this like muscle twitch. It's like initially I thought it was like some kind of maybe a genetic disease or some kind of disposition. I don't know what it was. But then I saw it was universal. This universal muscle twitch before eating or drinking, and there's this muscle twitch. And one day I was rightly curious, and I put my ear real close, and I heard it wasn't a muscle twitch at all. I put my ear real close, and right before a guy put the cereal into his mouth, I heard what he said. He said, Shakavaro. Shakavaro. That's exactly what he said. And then he consumed the cereal. Now, my friends, I want you to understand what a bracha is. Baruch Ata Hashem. Blessed be you, God, creator of the heavens and the earth. Elokeinu, our God. But right here, Melech HaOlam, King of the universe. Shahakol, that everything, Nihiyeh bidvaro. Nihiyeh is not past tense. Nihiyeh is not present tense. Nihiyeh is not future tense. Nihiyeh is all three. That everything that my eye sees, everything that I experience, everything that I encounter was brought into existence and is held in existence with your words. Could you imagine if once a day I cut through the static, acknowledged Hashem's presence, said the words, you're present, Hashem, right here. Elokeinu, our God, Melech HaOlam, King of the universe. Sha'kol nihiyeh bidvaro. Everything in existence was brought into existence and is held in existence with your words alone. Can you imagine the religious experience I would have? My friends, we don't make one bracha a day. We're obligated by Shulchan Aruch to make 100 brachas a day. 100 times a day, morning, afternoon, and night. We're supposed to stop, cut through the static, cut through the noise, acknowledge Hashem's presence, speak to my Creator, and recognize that He's here and he's the one who created and maintains everything in existence. And that is a very, very heady concept, a very religious concept, but it's the basis to everything that we do. And certainly the basis of tefillah, certainly the basis of brachas, and that's an extremely growth-oriented activity. If you stop, recognize what you're doing, and think about it. But I have one more step that I think changes this whole perspective in a very real way. When my daughter Ricky was 6 years old, she went to school and she was learning about Maisa Bereshis, about creation. And I remember she came back and she said, Abba, I get it. Before Hashem created the world, there were no colors, no trees, there was no ocean. But Abba, what color was it? What color was it? Now I want you to think about her question. You see, if you imagine the moment before Hashem said Vayihi, if you close your eyes and imagine that moment, what do you see? So typically we see black, but you see black is a color. Even vacuum implies physicality. But before Hashem said Vayihi, there was nothing, absence of any physicality. From complete absence of anything, Hashem said there should be, and suddenly everything came into existence. And if you think about that concept, what you're going to find is a very, very eye-opening concept. And that is, creation is physically impossible. You see, if I have quarks, I can make atoms. If I have atoms, I can make molecules. If I have molecules, I can make sand. If I have sand, I can make bricks. But before Hashem said Vayihi, there was absence of physicality, complete void, nothing, not even space, not even time. From complete absence of anything, you can't make something. There's no sand to bake into bricks, no molecules to make into sand, no atoms. There's nothing there. You can't mush and mold them because there's nothing in existence. And if you think about that moment for a minute, and you recognize that creation is physically impossible, you begin to understand a little bit about what creation is. You see, one of the fallacies that we engage in on a regular basis is we think I'm like Hashem, I'm a creator, I make stuff. All right, listen, not quite on Hashem's level. Hashem makes ocean, skies, and planets, but I do stuff also. I'm a little creator. I'd like to share with you the fundamental distinction between a human creation and God's creation. And that is as follows. Imagine that I build a shack. I take some wood and take some nails and bang it together, paint it, and I made myself a very nice shack. And I leave it for 20 years. And I come back 20 years later. Now, I would expect it maybe to be a little bit weather-beaten, a little bit disheveled, but I expect the shack to still be there. And the reason for that is because I created nothing. I took objects that were in existence already, and I shuffled them around. I took the wood, I took the nails, I banged them into here, moved this around here. I took objects that were already in existence and repurposed them and reformed them. But that's not creation. Yesh me'ayin creation, from nothing, something creation, is vastly different. When Hashem said Vayihi, He didn't just create the world. He had to form, fashion, and keep it in existence every moment of its existence. And if you'd like to understand what I mean, I'll give you a very significant but very simple mashal. Imagine it's a February night, and I'm standing there waiting for the bus, and I'm shivering. It's freezing cold. And it's so cold, I close my eyes, and I imagine a beautiful beach scene. White sand, ocean blue, cloudless sky. One lone seagull gently wafts across the sky. Suddenly the bus comes, splash! Gone is the sand. Gone is the ocean blue. Gone is the seagull. I am the dreamer. As long as I think about the seagull exists. As long as I envision the sand exists. But the minute I cease thinking about it, it ceases to be. I am the dreamer. I'm the one who keeps the dream in existence. That is Hashem's relationship to anything in existence. When Hashem created the world, Hashem took from absolute nothing and made it, and therefore has to sustain it every moment of its existence. Much like I to the seagull, Hashem is to everything in creation. Hashem is not just the creator, Hashem is the creator and Mishava, the one who keeps everything in existence. Because a Yesh Me'ayin creation isn't just like taking wood and moving it around. It's from nothing, creating, keeping, maintaining, because it needs constant maintenance. And Hashem is constantly maintaining every particle of physicality, every part of existence. Hashem is constantly infusing energy. And if for a short moment, for a split second, Hashem would cease infusing energy into any part of creation, it would cease to be, much like eye to the seagull. If I stop thinking about the seagull, it's gone. Any part of creation ceases to be. And when you understand that, you understand one of the names of Hashem. Not Hashem Mufurash, but one of the kinuyim of Hashem is Makom, place. Hashem is called Makom. Why? Because Hashem is the place of everything in existence. If anything is in existence, then Hashem perforce is there, because Hashem is keeping that place in existence. And if Hashem wasn't there, it would not be. So any place that is, Hashem is there, because Hashem is the creator and maintainer of everything in existence. Any part of this 13 billion light years of expanse, Hashem is there. Pluto, Venus, this constellation, that constellation, China, Japan, Hashem is here, because if you see anything, perforce Hashem is there keeping it in existence. And if Hashem was not there keeping in existence, it would cease to be. What that means is, if you'd like to find Hashem, Hashem, where are you? I can't find you anywhere in this world. All you have to do is find anything, and you'll see Hashem. Find a rock, and find a boulder, and find water, find a tree. But even something inorganic. Find me anything in existence, and you're seeing your creator, because your creator created it and maintains it, much like eye to the seagull. And when you dwell on that concept, and when you think about it, you start walking around with a vastly different perspective. If I see anything, I see Hashem. If I see anything that exists, the sidewalk, the trees, the ocean, the rivers, whatever it is, and I'm seeing Hashem who created and maintains it. And that's the kavanah I'm supposed to have when I say, Shahakol ni bidvaro. Hashem, you brought everything into existence and maintain everything in existence with your words constantly, all the time, every moment. But you have to stop. You have to think about this, and you have to dwell on it, and you have to let it sink in. And when you do that, you experience Hashem. You train your mind, and you train your eyes to see things very differently, and you understand things in a vastly different manner. I think this chazal is eye-opening, because what the Talmidim was saying to Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, ask us to fear Hashem as we do man. Look at this world that Hashem created. Look at the vastness. Look at 100 billion galaxies. Look at anything in this world, and you see harmonious systems. It's incredible. And what Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai said, yes, that may be true. That's a wonderful way to see an element of Hashem's world, and to see an aspect of Hashem's wisdom, and an aspect of Hashem's capacity. But if you want to really grow in Yiras Shamayim, if you want to grow in real understanding, this single cognition that Hashem is present, Hashem is here. If you're here, then Hashem is here. If anything's here, then Hashem is here. And that is davening, and that's brachos, and that's our daily existence. And it's important to be a religious Jew. Every once in a while, I'm a religious Jew. When I'm late, which is often, and I can't find my keys, Hashem, please help, I'm late, please. And I reach out to my Creator. That is a highly religious activity, because I cut through the static. I get it. I recognize that Hashem is present. Hashem runs the world. Hashem maintains the world. And I'm asking my Creator for help. And that activity is transforming, because I begin to understand Hashem is the Creator. Hashem is the maintainer. I don't want to get heavy here, but because it is Elul, I'll mention one observation within this concept that's a little bit frightening. As we get closer and closer to Yom Kippur, every year I find myself, as many people do, saying, okay, time to get serious. I'm going to make a list of what I did wrong. Let me figure out what I did wrong. And it always astonishes me that it should be so obvious. I should have pages and pages and books filled with what I could have done and didn't, what I should have done and didn't, and what I did and shouldn't have done. But yet somehow it's lost from me. So I have one simple observation, I think, that can greatly change your Yom Kippur, certainly greatly change your Elul. Okay, let's imagine that one time this year I did something I wasn't supposed to. I spoke Lashon Hara. Okay, listen, I'm not saying it's a big mitzvah. I know there are los says involved, and I know it's pretty bad, but all right, listen, come on. Everyone's human. What's the big deal? Okay, let's think about that proposition for a moment. Hashem created me for one reason and one reason only, because Hashem wants to give of His good to me. Hashem put me in this world and gave me this opportunity to grow and accomplish, to reach the ultimate good of being Davek to Hashem. Hashem is the Meitiv, the giver, and the only reason in the world, the only reason why Hashem made me was for one purpose, to give to me. And Hashem gave me a Torah, very clear directives. Do this because it's good for you. You'll grow, you'll accomplish, you'll have a good in this world and great in the world to come. Don't do this. It'll damage you in this world and it'll damage you tremendously in the world to come. Very clear directives. And what happens? I don't really care. Lashon Hara is not a big deal. I'm going to do it anyway. Now, you may say, okay, it's an Aveira, but it's not so bad. But here's where things get very, very interesting. I, as everything else in this world, am a creation. That means I didn't used to exist. And Hashem said, Vayihi, and it should be, and a single cell began dividing more and more, and into this world came I as a baby, and every moment of my existence Hashem was directing and guiding, and every moment of existence Hashem is keeping me in existence, much like I to the seagull, Hashem is to me. If for a moment of time Hashem would ever get angry at me, Hashem would be really upset. Hashem would just cease to infuse energy into me and I wouldn't be. What that means in plain, simple language is Hashem gifted me with a mouth, a brain, a human brain that has 100 billion neurons that could accomplish such things, and a human mouth that could do such things. And Hashem keeps it in existence every moment. And while Hashem keeps his mouth in existence, keeps his brain in existence, I use this very mouth to violate Hashem's will. It's as if I took a hand, and the hand that Hashem keeps in existence, and I take that hand and I smack Hashem in the face. Because don't you understand, it's not just that Hashem is present, not just that I'm doing it right in front of the king is keeping me in existence. The king is granting me speech. The king is granting me a mind. The king is keeping me, and using the very tools he gave me to grow. With very clear directives for my benefit, I use the very tool against his will, against his wishes. The audacity of one sin is so beyond human comprehension that it is worth thinking about. Naturally, Hashem has tremendous, tremendous rahmanas, and Hashem realizes that we're spaced out, and it's rare that we get it, so we don't understand the gravity of our actions, we don't understand what we could accomplish, and on the opposite side, we don't realize the damage that we do, and therefore Hashem has rahmanas, and Hashem doesn't hold us accountable anywhere near the amount we should be, and certainly if we do tshuva, Hashem forgives us, which is the greatest nace imaginable. Because how does it undo the action? But that's the system of tshuva, and it works. And Hashem totally cleans the slate, totally forgives us if we do a complete tshuva. But these are concepts that a Jew has to think about. And a Jew has to think about long and hard. The very first cognition that Hashem is present all day, every day. When I get up in the morning and I put my head down on the pillow at night, as I get behind the wheel of a car, as I drive on the highway, as I get into that elevator, and is the elevator shaft going to just collapse or not? As I go down the stairs, every moment of my life, Hashem is there, right there guiding, right there present, right there all day, every day. And that is one of the greatest concepts that a human being can come to. The Talmidim was saying to Rabbi Yochanan Zakkai, but that's so small. And look at the vastness of Hashem's world, and that is true. But this concept is far greater and far more life-changing. And by the way, if you want an exercise, and this one personally has changed my Shemona Esrei every single time. Before you start the next Shemona Esrei, close your eyes for a moment and just envision one thing. I'm going to speak to Hashem right here. I have to be a little careful. Hashem has no corporality, no physicality. Don't imagine you're speaking but I used to put a chair there. Guys would oh, Rebbe, we know what you're doing. But imagine that I'm speaking to Hashem right here. But if you envision that and imagine that, what you're doing is you're beginning to grow in real Yerushalayim. Another activity that'd be very wise to do is personalize every Shemona Esrei. Every Shemona Esrei, make a personal bakasha. If you're not sure where Shema Kolenu is the shahakol of all brachas, if you know the theme of the bracha, you can ask the various requests within the theme of that bracha. You could ask in that bracha. If you're not sure, you put in Shema Kolenu. If you're really unclear, after the Ratzon, but make sure that every single Shemona Esrei you personalize. You make a bakasha, big or small, ask Hashem for help. Why? Because you see, when I close my eyes and I speak to my Creator, I say, Hashem, number one, I get it, you're here. Number two, you're really in charge. You really determine the outcomes. I think I'm powerful. I think I'm in charge. I get it, I'm not. And that activity allows me to transcend the bounds of physicality. It allows me to recognize the presence of my Creator, allows me to understand that Hashem is really in charge, and changes my davening, changes my life. The third thing that you have to know is you have to know what the words mean. That's the third issue. But when you work on all of these things, you change, you grow. And I think what this Chazal is sharing with us is an eye-opening concept. You have to have both systems. You have to study the vastness of the world so you see the world, but it says Rebbe Yochanan Zaki, you have to know that Hashem is present. And there are three ways that Derech Hashem explains to us to come to real Yediyah of Hashem. Number one, the Masorah, to think about it, to dwell on it. Number two, Bechina, which is studying the vastness of the world. Look at an ocean, go to a river, study it, any single aspect of this world. And when you study, you see the vastness of your Creator, you see the wisdom, you see the wonder. But the third element is probably more simple and more powerful. That's the intuitive sense. I know it, I understand it. Again, sometimes I don't wake up until I'm in big trouble. But in that moment, I call out to my Creator. And ideally, it should be on a regular basis, ideally 100 times a day, a lot more, but certainly during Shemona Esrei. But the idea of a religious experience is supposed to be a regular part of our existence. And I'd like to close with one last observation. Let's go back for a minute to my mushal with the seagull. Again, it's a February night. I'm standing at the bus stop. I'm shivering cold. I close my eyes and I imagine a beautiful beach scene. White sand, ocean blue, cloudless sky, and one lone seagull flying east. As the seagull's flying east, suddenly the seagull says, you know what? I don't want to fly east anymore. I want to turn west. So he turns around and flies the other way. And I say, hey, guy, get back there. I want you flying east. He says, no, I want to fly west. Come on, no, I'm the dreamer. I want you flying east. No, I want to go west. He says, no, east, west, east, west. Now, obviously, that conversation never happened because I'm the dreamer. I'm the dreamer of the dream. Nothing can happen in the dream other than what I will to be. The seagull cannot fly west if I will it to fly east. And when you dwell on that, you recognize some of the wisdom of our Creator. Number one, this thing that we call free will is not simple at all. Nothing exists without Hashem's total, complete, keeping it in existence in every moment of time. No thought exists. No will exists. No cognition exists that Hashem isn't totally involved in, totally keeping in existence at every moment in time. So the idea of someone having a will other than Hashem is not so simple. In future sessions, we'll deal why it's philosophically impossible, but here's a much more important observation. There is nothing under the sun that could happen that Hashem doesn't say, yes, it's going to happen. The seagull cannot fly west if I want it to fly east. It physically can't because I'm the dreamer. I'm the one who keeps it. I'm the one who, it can't turn the other way because I'm its dreamer. There's nothing under the sun, nothing in existence that can violate Hashem's will because Hashem is the keeper of it all. Hashem is the one who contains it, who keeps it, and there's nothing under the sun that can happen that Hashem doesn't absolutely agree with. Now, to allow for free will, which again in future sessions we'll discuss more in depth, Hashem will allow the seagull to fly west, even though Hashem said east. And if you want to imagine what it's like in my dream, I say, Mr. Siegel, listen to me. I'm the dreamer. I see big and wide. And I know that it's much better for you to fly east. And he says, no, I want to fly west. So I say, okay, fine. Listen, buddy, I'm going to let you do your way. You want to fly west? I'll do it. But you see, I have to turn him. He can't turn on his own because it doesn't exist without me. And so I say, you want to turn west? Okay, we're going to turn west. What do you want to do now? You want to flap your wings? Okay, I'm going to flap your wings. So here we go. You want to continue? Yeah, I want to continue. You sure you want to do this? Sure you want to do this? Sure you want to do this? You see, the seagull can't do anything without me doing it. And nothing in creation can happen without Hashem keeping it, maintaining it. The fact that Hashem allows us to do things against what Hashem directs us to is because Hashem wants to allow for free will. Hashem wants to allow for schar va'onish, but nothing under the sun, nothing in creation, nothing in existence can happen without Hashem's complete acquiescence and completely agreeing with it. And again, that has many implications we're going to get involved in, but the simplest one is to recognize that my entire destiny and everything that ever occurs to me is completely in Hashem's hand. Bullets cannot strike me down. Lightning bolts cannot touch me because everything in existence is kept in existence by Hashem. The bullets, the lightning, Corona, everything in existence is only in existence because Hashem wills it to be. And I stand it because Hashem wills it to be. And anything that happens is happening in this dream called life. But much like I to the seagull, nothing can happen that I don't will to happen. And nothing can befall me that Hashem doesn't decree. And that is one of the most calming, settling concepts that a human being can have. I take my heavy load and I transfer it to Hashem. Hashem, you created me and you have a clear destiny for me. I'm going to follow your path. No one can help me. No one can harm me. You're the creator. You're the maintainer. You're the dreamer of this dream. And you maintain everything in existence at every moment. And no human being can help me. No human being can harm me. Bullets, earthquakes, and typhoons, nothing. It's all you. There's nothing but you. There's only you. Ein od milvado. There's nothing else in existence other than Hashem. And when I get that, it's not just that I see Hashem central in my life. I see Hashem central in everything. And I understand that everything that occurs to me, everything that will occur to me is directed by Hashem, guided by a loving creator who wants only my best. And with that, I live a very different life. All right, let's open the floor now to questions, thoughts, observations. If you have questions, please type them in. I could see the Q&A. And so if anyone has questions, you can type them in. I don't have that much voice left, but I do have, I do have some voice issues, but I do have, before I go into that, please keep in mind again, if you have not yet gotten the 10 really dumb mistakes that very smart couples make, it's considered right now, Baruch Hashem, I don't have a book here to show you, but it's very, very popular. I've received countless accolades and, from marriage counselors, marriage therapists, chassan and kala teachers, and people on the street. It's sold already, Baruch Hashem, 15,000 copies. I spent a fortune of time trying to define what a marriage needs. It's available on TheShmuz.com, TheShmuz.com. Please feel free to go there. Also, if you would like to get the Shmuz Chizuk, we send out these inspirational videos 3-4 times a week. And if you'd like to know about different Shmuz activities, if you go to TheShmuz.com, you'll see you can sign up for the Shmuz WhatsApp group. And once you join that, 3-4 times a week, you'll get these short inspirational videos sent directly to your phone. And you'll also find out about the different shiurim and etc. So if no one has questions, that's fine, because again, my voice is about shot anyway. But if you have a question, please feel free to type it in. If not, then we'll be fine for next week. I hope you'll join next week. Again, we're going to be Mitzvah Hashem every Wednesday night at 8 o'clock. And there's an ongoing series. The series is called An Owner's Guide to the Soul. Again, we're beginning with Hashem. We'll spend a few more sessions on Hashem, and then we'll get more involved in the neshama, I, and interface between. But I hope you'll join us Wednesday at 8 o'clock. And again, if you go to TheShmuz.com, you can get both the Shmuz, the 10 Really Dumb Mistakes. You can also get the video book there if you see it. And you can certainly join the WhatsApp group. I thank you very much, and I wish you a very good week to come. Thank you.